my name's Emily and welcome to How to Stretch Watercolour Paper. Now firstly, the reason you want to stretch watercolour paper is because if you use watercolour paint on paper, it wrinkles and crinkles like this and it dries like that and it's not very sightly, so you need to stretch it first. So firstly you need a piece of wood or a drawing board to stick your stretched paper to, and you also need a tray of water to soak your paper. You will also need some good thick quality watercolour paper and some brown gum tape. This is a kind of tape that if you wet it, it becomes sticky, kind of like an envelope. So first things first, I'm going to grab a sheet of watercolour paper. It's a nice and thick watercolour paper. You tend to find that the thicker the watercolour paper is, the longer you need to soak it for. So I'm just going to pop this into here and let it soak up all the water. Like I say, depending on how thick the watercolour paper is, depends on how long you need to leave it in there for. So you need to wait till it gets nice and soft. Because if you don't stretch it fully, then it kind of defeats the object, to be honest. So I'm going to leave that in there for a few minutes to soak, and then I'll come back when it's done. We're back and the paper is soaked. So I'm going to take this out of here and just put it in the middle of my board. It's important to make sure that you get any bubbles out from underneath, otherwise it will dry buckled and kind of again defeat the object. Right, now moving on to the tape. You don't need to precisely measure this out. Just make sure you've got enough to cover right past the edges and to overlap the other sides. So you need to put this in the water. Try not to stick it to the bottom. Get off any excess water. Just put it on the bottom. If you want to try and make it as straight a line as you can, that'll make a nice straight edge for your watercolour, for your painting as well. Again, try and get the bubbles out as best you can. The less bubbles in there, the tighter it will be. Okay, so that now you need to do that all the way around. So again, overlap the edges until you've got a nice tight seam. Dip it in. Use your 2 fingers to get off the excess water. Roughly around a centimetre edge. If you don't get it neat straight away, you can always take this off, as long as you take it off when it's dry. As long as you take it off when it's wet, before it's dried. Otherwise you'll end up ripping your paper. I will at a later date show you how to take this back off again. Same thing again. You can do this with any size paper, I'm just using a small sheet to show you. In my next video I'm going to be showing you how to do some watercolour techniques using this actual piece of paper, so you'll be able to see what it looks like when it's nice and dry as well. It's important to try and keep the air bubbles off this edge here, off around here where your paint's actually going to be, because if you've got any gaps or bubbles in those areas, then the paint can seep under it, and then when you take the tape off you get a bit of an unsightly edge, because you can see where the paint has bled through and it's not a nice neat edge anymore. And that's why I suggest getting out as many bubbles as you can, because then you have less chance of this edge bubbling up and destroying the edge line. Right, now I've kept this roughly around a centimetre around all of the edges, so if I was to paint to the edge of the tape I'd have a nice straight line edge, so it would look nice and neat and no having to hide it with frames and whatnot. Right, so there we go, that's it all done. Now you just need to dry that. You can either leave it leaning against a radiator, but don't let it touch the radiator, or you can put it in airing cupboard, or you can use a hairdryer. A hairdryer works really well as well. But as long as your tape is dry when you start painting, it's fine. It doesn't matter if your paper is a little bit wet or a little bit damp, you can still paint on it, but you're best off leaving it fully dry. Okay, so my next video is going to be about watercolour techniques, and I'll see you then. Bye!